Have you spoken to Todd lately?
Smith?
Yes.
Yeah. Probably about a couple months ago. So yeah, this in 2023, yes, for sure.
Okay. I need to reach out to him. I haven't spoken to him for probably pushing a year.
He's got some slick stuff going on as usual. I mean,
yeah, he was showing me some things.
Yeah.
A while back, but I don't know where he's at with it. Yeah.
I think it's a lot of that behind the scenes stuff, which is always fun because it's less it's less work when you just work quietly behind the scenes sometimes.
True that.
So I think that's where he's at these days.
Have you been doing conferences?
Auto wise?
Yeah.
The last NADA was the last thing I was at. I didn't do digital thing. Yeah, but I was at NADA.
That was the last time I saw Todd. Was NADA this year.
Yep.
That was more. We ran into each other at a restaurant, so it was more of a hey, what's going on?
Yeah. There was somebody that I had a couple run-ins like that. Like Sean Raines and I caught up real quick in passing at a steakhouse. But that's classic NADA, and then it's I'll call you, let's catch up, and then you know how that goes. So
yeah, you can always typically run into Todd's either at a restaurant or a strip joint. I didn't say that.
I won't comment on that. I don't have no knowledge or experience having to deal with that
at all. Corey, I think you and Gary May are two that actually we ran into each other at the show and then connected after the show still. We broke the rules.
Oh, yeah, Gary. Yeah. Gary's a good guy.
I think he's already given you a shout out.
Oh, that's my guy right there.
That's funny.
20 years, I think. 2018, 20 years. We are old, gentlemen, if you didn't know that. We're old.
Yeah. Well, Dealer Refresh turned 18 years. Was it two Fridays
de Mayo.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Cinco de
Most of the people.
That's commitment, by the way. I was in a Starbucks. I was in Manhattan last weekend, and
you're gonna get cut off in about 4 seconds here.
Oh, okay.
2-1.
And boom.
All right, finish up what you're saying, Corey?
Oh, I was just making the point. Talking about feeling old. I was in a Starbucks. I was in Manhattan last weekend, 2 weeks ago. Went to Starbucks like normal, right? Scan the app. I didn't realize on the other side of the screen it shows like how long you've been a member. So I scanned the app, and the girl's like, "Wow!" And I'm like, "What happened? Did it decline or something? What happened?" So it says you
was older than her.
2004. I'm like, I was 2 back then. And I'm like,
thanks.
I'm like, where's the customer satisfaction survey when you really want to get one, right?
that hot coffee might have found its way on her shirt.
That is scary. Yeah, you start thinking about like what year they were born and are turning 21 right now.
That's right.
It's when you feel old.
Right, I mean, and Jeff, like, how old's your son now?
19. He'll be 20 here next month. Yeah,
that's really crazy. That's really crazy when you think about it, for sure. But here we are. We're still here. We're still in the game. That's what's important.
We are still here. That's right.
And your hair hasn't changed at all in 20 years.
I do everything I can to keep it going by.
That's what I do to the face. I know more about face care than most women that you know, for sure. Okay.
Well, you gotta keep up with that pretty face. I understand.
That's right. This is snow leopard and pea mushroom and fireweed from the Appalachian Andes. Okay, I shellac all that stuff on during the day.
Masks.
Right.
Well, speaking of catching up, what's catches up with what you've been doing, man? Because you've been all over the board. You're hosting a morning TV show, and you've got your own network going on. Fill us all in.
Yeah,
Actually,
man.
I'm
I
going to
mean,
put
listen.
you on a solo screen because people need to see this incredible background.
Well, listen, always happy to be with the team at Dealer Refresh, and the truth is that a lot of the lessons that we learn inside the automotive industry are applicable across the board. So, I've put a lot of energy into taking some of these principles from automotive and bringing them to other business owners, bringing them to other businesses across the country, and really focused on media and taking all these observations from dealerships, from other businesses, and kind of cross-pollinating that, back and forth across different verticals with our media platform and for our ability to do that. So that's been a big focus. But of course, first love always is automotive, and you'll still see me from a strategic standpoint with some of our OEM tier 2, tier 3 relationships. So still doing consulting in that way, and still really wanting to see the industry continue to get better and more effective, more efficient for everybody, whether that's quality of life, whether that's culture, whether that's sales strategy or techniques. But that continues to be the focus, and hopefully there's some good nuggets here, and there's a great conversation that we're going to have over our time together today that will be able to be of benefit to our automotive friends out there.
What are some of the things that you learned in the automotive sector that have been able to go over into other sectors? Is it like a
Well, I think
top
one of the most
three, or maybe there's just one or two, or?
Well, the obvious one is a relentless approach to asking for sales, for following up, for having systems. Of course, I made my career in automotive from the BDC, digital, internet side of things is where that kind of niche was for a number of years. So there's so many people from a business perspective that are great at their thing. Most business owners are practitioners, not necessarily highly effective business owners, right? So, I'm great at installing HVAC. I'm great at exterminating. That doesn't mean I'm great at sales and marketing. And then a lot of people, from a business perspective, believe that they're not in sales. Oh, I have a sales department for that. Well, that's obviously the wrong attitude, because you're right. Everybody. So no, I'm the owner of the company. Okay. Well, you have to be able to sell. So, we've worked with a lot of startups, particularly through the pandemic. And, they always want to go, okay, great. Well, I'm ready. I need to hire a salesperson yet. Well, you need to sell the first 20 deals. You need to sell the first 40 deals. So what the sales process is, what the objections are, the customers that your questions are asking, and you can have gone through that process to even know how you can judge what another person is doing, because, we're pretty good at running game as salespeople. So from the perspective of, we've all seen, yeah, that guy didn't call me back yet. Oh, I'm doing all the follow up. I'm working over here. It's pipeline. I need more time. And in the meantime, I need more time means, I need more salary. I need to collect a few more of those checks while I figure out what I'm going to do. So there's just a lot of nuance to that. And, the car business produces a lot of personalities. So that also can translate to the other side to know from a business perspective what to look for. I know Alex just talked about hiring, some of these other things we'll get into, but the car business teaches a lot of lessons in that way, and it really is that light bulb moment to go, okay, great. I've spent the better part of my career, over almost 2 decades, helping car dealers, helping manufacturers in that area. Well, why don't we help the small business owner, the guy that's got 50 employees or less, or 20 employees or less, or solo practitioners, small agencies, people with 2 to 5 employees. They need the same principles that car dealers employ, also. And then there's the reverse, right? You learn some things from the corporate world, from the Fortune 500 world. I've worked with about 80 of the Fortune 500 in some capacity over my career, and even a couple of the Fortune 25. But you take lessons from there that you then do reverse treatment on and say, okay, hey, we got to move from the Wild Wild West and maybe add some more processes and some procedures, and you can't do that stuff anymore, like maybe we used to.
Have you ever worked with some of those top 100 companies, and you're consulting with them, and you get into the weeds, and then you look around, it's like, how the hell did they make it this far?
all and listen, that was really like that too. That was like that too in auto. I mean, early on for us when it was,
True.
you know, one mom and pop dealerships, and then now we got the big one. I mean, I won't say any names anymore, but now it's like, okay, great, we got that 45 store group, and we thought, all right, it's over. Like it's you know, and then you get in the mix, and you're expecting all these things to be so right and so efficient, and oh, great, I could really turn the lever on here. And then you get in the mix and you find out they're just as dysfunctional in many ways as the single point Chevrolet store down the street.
Well, you know, that keeps us in a job. It's job security, right?
Oh, well, good point. So one of the last automotive events I spoke at, guy comes up to me in the bathroom, and I tell the story all the time. Guy comes to me in the bathroom after I'm finished speaking. He's like, "Hey, man, you know, that was great stuff. You know, man, as messed up as these car dealers are, you're going to be in business. You know, you'll be in business forever." So I'm washing my hands and finishing up, and I turn to him and I say, you know, first, thank you
I've
for the
already
compliment.
been in business forever.
Yeah, well, he's right. But I washed my hands. I turned to him. I said, you know what? Thank you for the compliment. I said, but sometimes being in the car business is like being in the NFL. Yes, you can make millions of dollars, but if you end up with CTE at the end of it, was it really worth it?
True.
And that's part of that challenge, right? When we say, okay, great, this redundancy, this Groundhog Day effect, right? Where you're talking about the same thing for the same time. Before we came on, Jeff, before you popped on, Alex and I were talking. I said, you could list a series of problems and play what year is it with those problems, and have people pick 2005, 2006, 2002, not 2023. They would go, you know, we would say, oh, well, we have those problems now. Yeah, those are the same. It's almost deja vu for a lot of us who have been in the game for as long as the people on this video right now have. But by the flip side of that,
there's 18 years of that in the forums.
And now we've all been around long enough. I've been around long enough to see the dealer, unfortunately, that I knew wasn't going to get it 15 years ago. I've been around long enough to see the CVS that's now on that corner where the dealership used to be. Now, probably still made money, but that probably wasn't the intent, right? The intent wasn't for the dealership to fail or go out of business or whatever. In most cases, that's not the legacy intent of many of the dealerships that are out there, particularly the ones that have their name on them.
Correct. I've always said, I probably have a stronger stance on this. As soon as you graduate high school, everyone should have to have 1 year of community or military service and 1 year of retail sales, maybe specifically to the automotive. It would help a lot of people out.
Well, listen, I mean, if you look at resumes, there's a lot of people over the years that did have that 6 months experience in the car business. They're just doing something else now, right? So you have that too. But I think it goes back to things that, you know, guys like Warren Buffett say, right? Number one skill, right, is the ability to speak and communicate. I mean, the car business makes that opportunity available. I'm not going to say it teaches it, because sometimes we get bad teachers, right? Sure. My first teacher told me, go out, greet the customers, bring them in, sit them down, come get me. And it wasn't a learning experience. It was a order taking experience. So the auto industry provides an opportunity to become a great communicator, to have sales skills, to have technology skills now. I mean, you know, you go into a dealership today and now you have social media, you have some of these things that, again, age shows us, right? That was not on the table for us. I was with one of my dealers about 2 weeks ago at his house. We became good friends. He's since retired from the dealerships, but we became friends through our relationship. He was one of my longest clients, about 9 or 10 years. I was on retainer with his store. But we were sitting down joking about the day when he came in and showed me WebSense and how he had installed it on all the computers so nobody could be on that Facebook or that YouTube. And no, I don't want anybody goofing off doing work, right?
Yeah.
Now we're
I
begging them.
WebSense.
Now we're begging them. Why aren't you taking videos of walkarounds? Why aren't you doing TikToks? You got to do TikToks to sell cars. Now we're begging them to be on social media. It's an interesting evolution.
Yep. Yeah. Dealt with that with quite a few dealerships. Yeah. They would install the WebSense. Very familiar with that.
That's right. For sure.
Yeah, true point. Good point. Good point.
So, Cory, even though we could play pick a year for whatever, high level problems are going on right now, would you say like dealer principals at the moment are struggling with the value of their dealerships amidst all the challenges that are at play?
Well, I think you have a lot of people at inflection points. And those inflection points, I think, are driven by a couple different things. I think number one, it's driven by succession plans. So it's alarming, the people who report on us, alarming the amount of or percentage of dealerships who don't have a succession plan in place as it relates to what the next steps are. Whether they have children in the business who don't want to be in the business long term. You've got some children that, hey, as soon as so-and-so goes, they're going to sell that thing as fast as you can. So you have some people at that inflection point. You have, I believe, another subset of people who are saying it's getting harder to sell a car. There's more steps, there's more processes, there's more regulations, and this isn't fun anymore. It was fun in the 80s. It was fun in the 90s. It was fun. It's not fun anymore. I'm getting older. I want to enjoy the opportunity, right? So in lieu of becoming a complete absentee dealer and putting your dealership at risk by just leaving it in the hands of your team, which can be dangerous, right? In a lot of instances, I think they're going, hey, we're getting multiples again. We're having these opportunities. I've got the right brands, right franchises. I'm in the right location. Now may be the time to exit. So I think you've got people just generally that said, you know what? I don't know that I want to do another 10 years. I don't want to deal with all the extra regulations, TikTok, Facebook, all this stuff. Oh my God, it's too much. I've hired people and tried them out, brought them as experts. I call it rescue hires. We make hiring decisions hoping that person coming in is going to rescue us from whatever problem we have, whether that's in used cars, service department, whatever. We make these rescue hires, and then that doesn't work out. And then they're sour on the whole idea. I remember dealers who closed their whole BDC because one person left. Cory, can you come help us? What's going on? What's going on with BDC? Oh, well, we had a BDC up. The manager left. We closed it down. Okay, that
happens a lot.
Yeah, that's highly intelligent. So I think back to the answer, Alex. It's that piece, and then now you're looking to the next generation. And what's interesting about some of the next generation is that age and youth does not dictate progressiveness. Those things don't, we make that immediate equation. We go, great, the next gen, they're going to, as most of the associations refer to those programs as the next gen program, the next generation dealers, great,
Under
there's going to be
40s.
new ideas. What's that?
The under 40 group?
Yeah. There's going to be, this is new ideas. There's going to be new concepts coming in, but you got to remember who the next gen was raised by.
Yeah.
And influenced
the situation
by.
We're in.
Right? So you could have this great 38-year-old guy or woman who's next up to take over the dealership, but not necessarily be thinking progressively, because that wasn't the umbrella under which they were taught.
Mm-hmm.
So that can't be just a bellwether indicator. So I think that's why you have a lot of some of the buy sell activity, and some of the numbers are just so, guys, I don't know. I'm not a math expert, right? I don't know how you live long enough to get back the money that some of these guys are getting for their stores. I don't know how those numbers extrapolate out as a big group paying, crazy dollars, or what we would call crazy dollars. I don't know the math, how you could sell enough cars, service enough cars over any period of time in our lifetimes to really see the ROI on that, but God bless them. So I think when you have these offers you can't refuse, it becomes bad business. It becomes ego to stay in a lot of different different ways.
There's a trend in the investing world right now that really started after Silicon Valley Bank went up, and it's we'll stay away from that. But the investors who tried to are mainly focused on SaaS businesses, software as a service, things like digital retailing solutions in our space, your Facebooks, all that kind of stuff that were purely software-driven businesses. Valuations on those companies came roaring down, and not that they went down into some crazy low level. They went back to the norm. So the norm on these things is about 3 times. 3 times revenue is typically where a lot of the purchases were made back in the day, and they were getting 10 to 20 times. For a little while there. Some of the more recent ones you heard about, the acquisitions were massive. Unless your revenue numbers were just insane, like a dealer.com or an e-lead or something like that. You only have so many buyers who can spend that kind of money.
Right. Well, and I think the other thing is
maybe dealers are heading in that direction too, is my point I was trying to get to.
Yeah. And what a lot of people misconstrue from an investment standpoint and a capital raising standpoint or those types of situations is money has to be spent. So even when you see a valuation or you see someone potentially overpaying and we go, they're stupid. Well, those dollars that are tied to so many other barometers and so many other levers within the institution of finance that needs to be considered. So one person's overpay is another person's I've got to use it. We call that in the OEM world use it or lose it money sometimes, right? Yep. So if budgets aren't going to change, we're not going to have access to this capital. We have to maximize this opportunity while we have it before lines get cut or availability or certain margins get called in. So there's so many different levers that go on behind not only a valuation, but it's almost like real estate right now, right? How does a house go 50,000 over asking? People are beating each other up on lawns outside. You're reading across the country, over houses and, bidding up crazy. Well, the house didn't change. There was nothing new that happened. The area didn't change. None of those things changed. The climate of the situation, access to capital, money, a need to divest, roll over dollars, all those kinds of things play, I think, in the role when we start thinking about someone's decision to exit and or what someone's willing to pay to acquire an asset, whether that be a vendor-based asset or a dealership.
True.
Yeah.
So also putting dollars to work, the used car market right now. Fun place.
Listen, do you like whack-a-mole? I mean, I think that, I don't even know where to start with that, but it's one of those things where you can go, this looks ridiculous, but people are doing it. This sounds ridiculous, but people are doing it. There are certain realities that would never, I remember going car shopping for my nephew what was the term? Market adjustment. In this market adjustment time period, right? And I remember going to a Nissan dealership, and who am I anyway? But I didn't go to a Nissan dealership like I'm Cory Mosley. I just went to a dealership by my house, and I assume they have no idea who I was, and just go through because I like to study the process, right? I don't want people to adjust behavior. It's like your boss coming to visit. My guys act differently when I'm here than when I'm not here, I believe. So I go in like that, but the guy starts giving me the speech about market adjustment, and guys, I'm talking about a Versa. I'm not talking about a GLE AMG 46. I'm not talking about something low end. I'm talking about Versas. Oh, we've got a market adjustment of $3,000 on a Versa.
Versa.
And I just looked at the guy and said, listen, my nephew will continue to walk to work before I would ever pay $3,000 over on a Versa. No disrespect to any Nissan dealers watching this, but let's call a spade here. You're not getting a $5,000 deal on me on a Versa. It's just not going to happen, dude. So,
well, they might not get it on you, but apparently they got it on quite a few people. I mean, hell, we're selling G classes for 60 to 80 over sticker.
Correct. And I go, wow, that's crazy. But back to my last statement, the statements of economics, right? I have a few friends that picked up G-Wagons, crazy overages, but 6,000 pounds over, tax write-off. So all those things behind the scenes when people are, passing judgment in their head or in their coffee clutches about what decision someone made to acquire whatever it is they buy, right? Whether that's a watch or it's a G-Wagon. There's still a mentality of we don't know what someone's rationale is and what action they needed to take or why they needed to take it. But the used car valuations, of course, you go, how is that 2018 Honda Accord cost more in the marketplace than the 2023 does, right? Well, sir, we can't get a 2023. So now that 2018 looks attractive if you need to drive. So I think that's a classic thing of where you really have to pay attention, and that's where guys like a Jason Rice and these guys are so I believe so effective because they're watching the data. And I think we both agree, taking the emotion out always helps because you had that used car operation that's like, oh, we turned this thing in 7 days as soon as it hit, then they go buy 17 more of them, and now the valuations turn and you're stuck.
The problem is right now, and we had Matthew Haken on last week. He was pointing out some of these things, and certain brands are getting new cars. And as if you're seeing any new cars stacking up on a dealer's lot, the used car is going really fast. But other brands where they're hard to get, all right, so the used car is selling for more than sticker on a new one still. Cadillac's a great example of that.
Right. And that becomes about decisions, right? The argument used to always be, what's a good, my friends people not in the industry, right? Oh, well, what's a good deal? What's a good deal? Well, listen, a lot of times a good deal is
not right now.
how you feel about that deal.
Yeah.
Right? Did you leave the transaction feeling good about what you bought? Is it affordable? Did you leave it going, man, I spent $200 more than I should have? Because people get, as consumers, a lot of people get too caught up in the minutia of the deal, trying to win, trying to beat the dealer. And I find the most happiest, the most miserable customers are the ones who are so focused on that. And they're so focused on.
Yeah, shit. Ever since I got into business, there was, the saying, the customers that pay the most are typically the happiest customers.
Correct.
Correct. And the customers that pay the least are the biggest asshole customers. It's true. It's absolutely true. And it's because exactly what you said, they don't get into all the minutia and all the variables, and they don't overthink it. They just go in, they see what they want, and they purchase. It definitely holds true.
I bought what I wanted. I could afford to buy it. So if you made $5,000 or you made $2,000, et cetera, that isn't the guiding principle to my happiness. So I think that's what you see, and then you have an effect of where people. When I would be in store and do training, the first opener, just to set the tone here, is I wanted everybody to understand one thing: selling starts after you start dealing with consumers who don't need to buy. Guy's on an E-Class. He's on his 12th E-Class. He rolls in and is like, give me the black one. New body style's out. My lease is up. I need a new lease. We're not selling that guy anything. The selling starts with I'm just looking. I didn't come to buy. I don't know. I'm looking at 12 other things. That's where the selling starts. And that's the same thing, from this kind of renaissance now where people are starting to have to sell again.
Yep. We've been talking about that for quite a few weeks now.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see. And, I recognize it every single day. I mean, for 2 or 3 years, it was just taking orders, making stupid money.
So,
right.
And now there's some, now they got to get back to the grassroots.
So those
Correct.
same
100%.
where the new cars are starting to pile up, those dealerships are remembering. They're getting back into it faster. It's the ones where you don't, and you still can take the orders and whatnot, where you don't have to. So they haven't turned those light bulbs back on.
Right, and that's not an epiphany, right? That's economics. Floor plan costs, higher interest rates. Cars can't sit on, you know what I mean? So those are, it wasn't like, oh, you know what? We should start getting more aggressive again. Economies of scale are driving that. Bottom cash flow is driving that. What decisions got made or didn't get made during the heyday. Alex and I were talking a little bit about before we went live. I had GMs calling me, people calling me, more money than ever made in their lives, calling me like, hey, what should I be doing? Should I be investing in something? What should I be buying properties? GMs that were making 300 grand that made 900 grand. That's a life change. Those are life changing time periods for a lot of people. I mean, hell, I said, I might need to. Is there any GM positions real quick during COVID?
For a year or two.
I was about to lace up, but now you're re-regulating, and that also depended on where you work, right? So if you worked for a share the wealth organization, then you had those tremendous spikes. If you work, for an organization that was like, yeah, no way I'm paying you this. I don't care what the percentage is. I don't care what's happening in the business. I'm not going to, quote unquote, allow you to make X amount of dollars. Then, some people will tell a different story. I know GMs that are salary GMs and didn't really make too much more through the heyday than they did before.
True. That's true. Yeah, that sort of bite. Pros, cons, I guess.
Of course. Right.
Well, I found a lot of those people that are willing to, especially here at the Benz dealership, that didn't shy away from spending 50, 60,000 over MSRP. A lot of them were small business owners, and were taking advantage of those PPP loans.
You got PPP. We just had somebody on our small business show talking about the ERC, the employee retention credit. That's $26,000 an employee. So, the guy we had on was the expert in that space. He helped his church get $600,000. They just were able to buy a new piece of land to build a new campus. He helped a 45-person construction company get $1 million back in tax credit, from the government. So it goes back to someone's rationale, right? So I'm going to go buy my dream car now. I know, a woman in the speaking world, her topic has been red hot over the last 18 months. She's probably doubled her income. 3 years ago, she posted about buying her dream house. Last week, she posted about buying her dream house because she bought a bigger house that she didn't think, where she thought her destination was 3 years ago. Now, through catching a wave, catching the right time in any industry, you catch the right wave, you catch the right time, you see that tremendous growth, and people are people. So, and particularly car guys and gals, right? There's a lot of Rolexes that were bought during the pandemic. There's a lot of Panerais and Breitlings, and if you're a real watch guy, Patek's and Jaeger LeCoultres, and that were bought during the pandemic. You better believe it.
I'd love to see it. Values coming down now.
Yeah, I'd love to see a stat on the Rolex purchases from GMs across the United States over the past 2 years.
If you could get one.
If you can get one, right? They don't even have display models at my local jewelry store here. So,
but no question about it.
So there's a good question that I think leads into a little bit of something here from the audience. So Leonard Person, and there's some great comments in here, by the way. It's good seeing Drew and Cassie and Bill Vaughn especially, and Greg Wells all coming in. I don't know if you're seeing these, Cory.
No, I can't see it.
So there's some good ones coming in. But the Leonard had a good question. Why is Toyota, this is a good one, I think, that Toyota has got decent lease programs. And so do other lenders for Toyotas right now. why are they seem to be the only ones who are doing good lease programs if their cars aren't piling up? And I, I do want to take a first shot at this, and then I think we can transition over to the mindset of the OEMs. But my grandfather used to say that there was no smarter OEM that he worked with than Toyota. This is the owner of the Checkered Flag Automotive Group, and he always said they were forward thinking. They weren't reactive to things. They were always going in one direction, and they pushed for it and pushed ahead. And I think when it comes to leasing, this is a forward thinking thing because leasing ensures that you're going to bring a customer back into the market sooner. And it mostly ensures they're going to check back in with your dealerships. So,
yeah. So I think there's a couple of things. First, whoever put that up, thanks. So I can just real quick shout out Greg. Thank you, Bill. Fantastic. Oh, I guess my team did that, so now I can see. My studio manager put his head out and like I did that. Well, thank you very much for doing your job halfway into the interview. But shout out to Greg, shout out to Brutal, Drew, and Matt. There's some great names on here. Shout out to you guys. So to answer that question, I can't speak, of course, particularly what Toyota is doing. They're not an OEM client of mine. I could probably speak to a couple others, but I think like anything, no different than dealers. You have a mentality and a belief system that is the guiding principle of an organization. So somebody over there thought exactly what you're saying, Alex. People who are far smarter than me, at least, I won't speak for you guys, but far smarter than me, sat down and ran math and did some projections and did these factors and said, you know what? This is the time that we should be doing X. And we need to take action further. So when you talk about Toyota, of course, you're talking about, the inventors of the turn and earn, the inventors of these different models of production. Not that they are perfect and weren't without flaws in many different ways, like most manufacturers, have challenges. But what you're living by is the essence of the thought process. How do we do X? How do we zig when other people are zagging? How do we make those things happen first and stay at the front of something? It's no coincidence that when you say, okay, great, who are some of the most innovative or who are the ones that would be thinking about getting more aggressive in this area? If you ask the general automotive community what manufacturers would come to mind, Toyota is probably going to be top 3 in that list. By the same token, and I'm not going to call out another manufacturer, but by the same token, if we said who's at the bottom of that list, there's probably some names that come to everybody's mind as well. And that's no different in the dealer world. There's a reason why we many times hear about the same dealers over and over again, the innovative dealers. Oh, did you hear what insert this guy is doing or this organization or this woman is doing at these stores? These are generally names we've heard over and over and over again because progressiveness is part of the culture and the fabric of their organization. That's why we continue to hear that and see people taking these steps or getting more aggressive, or the people that didn't stop advertising, or the people that tried to capitalize on some of these things in the marketplace. That's why it's similar. There's those similarities. You hear about XYZ and you go, oh, makes sense. I would expect them to be out in front of insert the blank.
Good point. Good point. You touched on it earlier. You had touched on the younger generation, progressive, and since you're working with, you work with dealerships, you work with other small businesses, what are some of the challenges currently that you're seeing for these businesses and small companies and dealerships to be able to hire people? Maybe that younger generation, or maybe a little bit older, but it just, I don't know. I mean, like I said, my son's about to turn 20. So I see him and his friends and what they're, it's unfortunate. I shouldn't say unfortunately. I think it's unfortunate, but they're in a much different area at their age than I think we were at the same age.
Well,
How are these companies finding the right people to hire anymore?
Well, I think one of the things you have to look at is you have to look at what your organization has done or is doing to adapt to the interest point of the people that they're trying to hire. And what I mean by that is, I remember, again, all these things interchangeable, right? We could be talking. I'm going to tell you something that was 5 years ago that could be today, right? So I had this conversation with a dealer. He says, I don't understand why we can't get more younger people. Right now, we're on the Gen Z now, but before that was millennials. We talked about for the last decade. But I can't understand why I can't get more people to come work at the dealership. Great. Let's talk about that. What are you doing in terms of recruiting? What are you offering? He drops on his desk. He drops this 5-page pay plan. This pay plan is all driven by financials. Sell this number, how much money you can make, how you can do this, how you can do that. Right. I said, well, what about the things that I know you as a dealer don't want to hear and think are corny, but are very important to the group you're trying to hire? Quality of life, work schedule. What do you do socially as a dealership? What do you do from the foundation of the community? What are you doing to create culture or address culture? And I used to say this, I presented many years at NADA and obviously across the dealer body on this idea of recruiting and retention. And one of the key presentations I would do is creating the team that your customers deserve. And what I would talk about in that presentation is this idea of customizing and taking a real hard look on what aligns with the values. You have organizations now that are donating in employees' names to various charities. You have health and wellness incentives. You have gym memberships that are part of the part of the package. You have a real hard look at hours. We have this accepted practice that retail car business means 100 hours a week. And the exchange is money. So the exchange for the work hours, the exchange for the opportunity to be your own business, as is often still talked about, the exchange for that is financial ability, financial wherewithal, financial rewards. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sure, Jeff, if you go back and start talking to your son, that's not the primary priority for many of them. Nope. Many of these people we're trying to acquire now in the dealerships do still live at home and have no intention of leaving that. They have 4 and 5 roommates. They have all these different things that allow them to adjust their economy. So the idea of the $100,000 payout is not the draw for a lot of them. So you lose a lot of good people to that model. The other model is we spend so much time on the with the acquisition. We bring people in and then we say, hey, just so you know, you're on 90 days probation and we can fire you for any reason. Welcome to the dealership.
Yeah, good luck.
Right. There is not a long-term focus or a long-term process in place on what we do once we acquire to then get them to stay. Mm-hmm. We still are bringing them in, sitting them down, having them shadow this person for a few weeks or shadow this process. There's not, in most instances, by and large, I'm not talking about your exceptional organizations that have detailed training programs and have invested in their university content. I'm talking about your run-of-the-mill standard dealership across the country. They're not coming into an organization where I say, okay, great, show me what the stay plan is for an employee. And they'll look at me like I'm insane. What do you mean the stay plan? Well, we went through all this work to acquire them. We hired outside companies, recruiting companies. We spent all this money on ads. We went to job fairs. We did all this stuff to get them. What are we doing? What are we doing to keep them?
Keep them.
And most people don't have a plan for that.
No. Or if they do, it's pretty chauncey.
Right. I pay you. That's our plan.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or what's a career path?
right?
Yeah, career path
That's
as well.
another issue. And I'm not non-sympathetic to that idea. If I own 2 dealerships, and I've got 3 sales managers, I've got 3 salesmen. I'm not going to magically create a 4th sales manager. There's not an economy there, but there are things I can do. I can create, and I talk about this in that presentation as well. I can create layers. I can create layers of seniority. I can create financial incentives that go along or correspond to that. I can increase training, create training opportunities, create cross-training opportunities that allow me to not only augment compensation, but also to create these layers. If you go into a Cracker Barrel, they have stars on their pit, right? And the stars indicate, right, their level of seniority, who they are. Now that may mean nothing to one person, right? I don't care about stars, but it may mean everything to somebody else.
Good.
I can walk into a business right now and hand out $10 Starbucks gift cards, and those people will remember me forever and think I'm the greatest human being on earth over a $10 Starbucks gift card. Why? Because no one else has ever bothered or cared to even do something as small as that.
There's another line in the store too.
What's that?
You got me thinking. So, in going back to when I was on the floor, the career path was, okay, you're going to go work in the finance office, and you can go on the desk, and then, there's used car manager, GSM, blah, 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 blah. And it was never a thought of like, hey, what if this person is technically adept? Can we maybe give them a career path towards the internet side? And there's different parts of the dealership that I think get lost in this very traditional, okay, you got to go to F&I training school. Then you spend 5 million years in F&I, and then you go over here and you spend time on the desk, blah, blah, blah. But there's other paths. So as soon as you said layers, that's when I was like, oh, there's also other departments. And they work together, they favor each other. And by the time that person's come through and spent many years at the store, and if they've broadened themselves to what their talents are good at, man, you've got an amazing bench.
Well, because a lot of times we get that wrong and we lose great talent, because one of the most interesting, entertaining commercials I ever heard used to run on Sirius all the time. And it was like a commercial for like some company that helps you start a business or something. But the commercial basically went something to the effect of who would win in a race? Last year's Le Mans cyclist or a 13-year-old? Most people would say the Le Mans cyclist the Le Mans winner cyclist would win. But what if I told you I put the Le Mans cyclist on a tricycle and I put the 13-year-old on a 10-speed? Who would win then? See, it wasn't. It was the vehicle that made all the difference. So, no pun intended there. But you have people inside a dealership right now, many of which are in the wrong vehicle. They're in the wrong position, and we lose talent because we say they couldn't make it or couldn't hack it or weren't good in that position without really taking the time to make sure that they were in the right vehicle. Maybe they would have been killer in the BDC, or maybe they would have been killer on the sales floor, maybe they would have been killer as an advisor, or killer in the office. All these different layers there that could have been, but if we don't make that investment, if we're not looking at it from that perspective, if it's still right now there is somebody interviewing saying, sell me this pen. There's a sales manager somewhere interviewing salespeople, and that is and that is the line. 30 years later.
What was the term?
Those are not the interview questions that we want to be asking in 2023.
What did you coin that 5 minutes ago? The post hire? You coined
rescue
it something.
Hire?
Oh, a rescue hire. A rescue hire?
No, it was to keep them to keep them at the company. Some type of incentive.
Oh,
what'd you call it?
What is your stay policy? What's the
stay policy? Yes, yeah.
Yeah. What's the stay? We know about we know what it. We know we put them on probation when they get there. What are we doing in that 90 days that they're on probation or can be fired for any reason, or sign here? Make sure we're an at will state. Sign this document, at will employment. So we do all that and then go, welcome to the dealership.
Yeah, I'm going to start I'm going to start a discussion over in the forums Right. I'm curious to how many dealerships have something like that, and if so, maybe share some examples. We've got one here. It's pretty
Yeah.
laughable, but we do have one.
I guess that's a start. So, you've got people, and here's the other nugget on that topic. Talk to me about the stay interview, not the exit interview.
That's a good
That's
one.
what I want to know about.
Yeah.
I've got people
I
that
like
have been in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, 1 year. Talk to me about your stay process, not your exit process,
Yeah.
which I would gather half percentage of dealerships, half dealerships don't even have that. You want to
Oh,
quit,
yeah.
quit, goodbye, see you later, next.
Yeah.
Well,
And
that should
that
be.
attitude,
Shouldn't that
mind
be a
you,
one-on-one meeting? Manager and
100%,
employee. Yeah.
100%.
How many dealers are doing
Yes.
that consistently?
No.
Right. There's the rub. So, and now, how do you make that argument? I have maintained since I came into this industry, particularly on the consulting side, I have maintained this overriding statement that has been a guiding statement I've kept with me. It is much easier to speak to a dealer and explain to a dealer and show him how to get back $100,000 a month that they've lost than it is to convince them they're missing $100,000 a month in business. And I'm using the number as an arbitrary number. But the attitude is completely different that you have to negotiate when you're selling something that they have not attained yet. The skepticism is much higher. The investment of time and belief system is much higher. That phone call that I would get when they were losing money or something had turned, our close rates falling off the cliff, that phone call and that sale, that relationship was completely different than going, you know what? I've looked at this. I've looked at all your processes. I've looked at this thing here. I think you're missing $250,000 a month based on these key things. Oh, I don't believe that. I don't know. Well, here's why. And you know what? Then you say it's going to cost X to fix it, and then you can buy a dealership for that price. Well, listen, then you just get in it. Then it gets into silly season sometimes when you have those conversations. That's when we talk about the CTE, right? So hey, you give me 30,000, you give me 30,000 a month, I'll give you back 250,000. If we were at MGM Grand right now, Kirshner, we were at National Harbor right now, and I said, you give me 30, we're going to make back 250. We're going to take that bet all day. But when it goes through that mind, you're running it through the mind of, is this possible, and how much do I believe it's possible? And that's the difference maker between the dealers that we see that are the most progressive consistently than the ones that are just, in the game.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yep.
Well, if you can give me that type of return, you and I will go hit the casinos.
We'll stop this show right now.
Listen, I'm feeling good about a few roulette numbers, so I'm feeling good. If I call you, how far is Hagerstown from National Harbor?
It's 50 minutes.
All right, if I call you, be ready to roll, bro.
All right. Wow, it's Mr. Jeff White. Haven't heard from him in a long time.
That's a name that's a name that sounds familiar.
Yeah, he worked with Higher Gear for the longest time.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Shout out to Jeff. A lot of names, a great group. So we haven't been here, done this in a long time. So great to see some of those names come up on the screen for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's great to have you.
Bill Vaughn is spreading the love around his showroom floor.
Yeah. Before we jump off, what's just because I'm curious of two things. What's your take on AI and anything, any ways you see that maybe changing our industry in the automotive side? And then you mentioned earlier that you were looking at a Versa, but I take you for an S-Class guy.
I said for my nephew.
Yeah.
That's
what you said.
First time driver, my nephew.
Now this is selling, folks. This is what you're witnessing. With Cory from a Versa to an S-Class, and Cory wasn't even in the market.
Yeah, that's an upgrade. That's an upgrade right there. So on the AI question, I have always tried to go deeper on the things that I understand and stay away from the things that whether have not gone deep enough in. So from the AI standpoint, we use AI now. We use it from a content level. I mean, it's and there's a human looking behind that, but now doing a lot more media as I'm doing and putting out a lot more content, we have started to use those elements of it for creative ideas, for creative content. So I think where it will be very helpful, and I'm sure the vendors, right, are already doing this in terms of some of their products or services that they're putting out in the marketplace, as a particularly as a way to bring down some of their internal costs that might be human based, right? So I think that's where you're going to see that. I mean, a great example, we launched our small business network here in Richmond. I was originally I had originally allocated dollars to outside writers for a lot of different blogging. We're more video focused, but you still want to have the article and the written content for a lot of different reasons for people. But that's an investment that I no longer needed to make because we brought in, AI for several of those elements. Somebody's not making money because of that. So I think people have to pay attention, and there's a unique opportunity in terms of content and content opportunities being so valuable. Of course, you've got the coders and the program guys that are integrating this into chat algorithms and the ability to do those other things at a bigger scale, which we'll clearly continue to see. But at the dealer level, one of the great challenges is being found, being considered a place that we can go, that a consumer can go to for good information. And that's always been an area where I think dealers have struggled with things that weren't direct marketing related, things that weren't one-to-one. We ran a car commercial, $249 payment, come on down. But that content side that, some other OGs like the Paul Potrats of the world used to talk about in the automotive side with the agency is that content and high funnel, low funnel, and having those conversations. I think there's a great opportunity to use AI to create content that can now be SEO friendly, be searchable, and live in that chasm where now I'm in Hagerstown area, I'm in these different areas, and I'm going, Mercedes-Benz E-Class, and now seeing a plethora of information come up from my local dealer, not my manufacturer, because the manufacturer doesn't care where you buy the Mercedes, as long as you buy a Mercedes. So I think that the ability to create some unique IP at the dealer level in their PMA is going to be one of the powerful ways beyond the coding and language aspects of it.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you were. I'm sort of. I was following you. It's like some things you get into, but some things you just sort of stay away from. And I've stayed away from it until this week, and now part of me is like, maybe I need to dive into this. I started following, a couple different AI trainers and teachers, and because there's a lot more to it than just asking questions.
Correct.
So I'm starting to get a little interested in it. Part of me is like, take some time and figure this shit out.
And how we've used it in practical applications, learning more, helping target some of the hashtags and some of the things that we're doing with our network here to gain more traction in the area, using it to help us identify that, analyze some of that data, from a competitive set. So those are the ways, at a layman's side, right? Because I've never proclaimed to be a technology expert. That's not where use technology, right, to get to the goal of the strategy. I'm a strategy guy. Take the strategy, then use the tools we need to implement the strategy. So I think this is just another way to do that. But I'm probably paying a little more attention to it now, just because I slow rolled a lot of things years ago. Like I slow rolled chat. Like Todd, you talked about Todd Smith. I remember Todd first telling me about chat 15 years ago, whatever it was, and I said, nobody's giving you their name, information, email address, phone number, and typing into a box. So So those are one of those moments. It's like Gary Vee talking about passing on Uber and passing on investing in some early stage stuff. Yeah. So I remember that conversation and you know, secure enough to say, you know, I got that wrong, obviously. So in getting those things wrong, now when these things come up, my question is always, how is this a shiny object just to chase? Jim Ziegler said, beware of distractions disguised as opportunities. So being able to discern the difference between something that we really need to pay attention to that has longevity versus things that came and went, RIP Periscope, RIP some of these other technologies or revolutionary things that are going to change how we communicate. What's that?
The metaverse.
Yeah, I see
there you go.
More about that. Yeah. So, you know, Vine, some of these other things that we're going to revolutionize our business. It's looking into it enough to go, there's something here, and can I test the water with it, like I think you'll do, Jeff, and like we did with some of our content, testing the water, and then you can go deeper, and then go deeper, and then you know, that process you see, is this thing built to last, or you know, what's going to happen to
it. Sometimes we pick things and you just get lucky. Yeah.
True. We're all looking for the next
QR codes. Who knew those things were fun?
I was going to say that.
You know, what's funny though, Alex, with that, like a QR code, is that, of course, been around forever. People have been talking about in different capacities. I feel like QR codes came, went, and then now come back because obviously I'm doing a lot of TV now, and what you never saw was someone putting a QR code in the commercial. And I'm not talking about OTT or some more progressive, the Hulu advertisers that were more, I'm talking about CBS 6, you know, the guy that sells home improvement, that's talking about, you know, floors, putting a QR code in that commercial so somebody could just hit it.
The Super Bowl, it was just one ad. It was a QR code.
Right.
Oh, really? I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Well, I think, you know, it took a little while for efficient technology to catch up with that particular piece.
Right. You didn't need the app. Right. You needed the app. You had to download the app, open the app, and read the code. Now you're, now your phone.
And I think COVID sort of pushed that as well, because, you know, if you walked into a restaurant, if you wanted any type of touchless or paperless, it was like everyone was just quickly adapting to that. And it's great that we had a technology that's been around for a long time that finally made its way. It's an ongoing joke, because we've got a thread in Dealer Refresh forums that's like, I don't know, 15 years old, and it's the longest thread. So between that and the one about jorts, just, they never die. They always come back. Someone will post in there and bring the discussion back to the forefront for everybody.
QR codes on some jorts.
Some things never die.
No. Well, Cory, man, we really appreciate it. It's definitely good seeing you. We got to connect afterwards at some point, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Always great to be on. Great crowd as usual. Thank you. I'm scanning. The TV's a little off the yard for me to read. I'm pretending like I don't need glasses. I don't have them on.
That's good.
For my own vanity. But I appreciate all the positive comments and Leonard and Jeff and Bill and all those guys. Great audience as usual.
Awesome, man.
Well, thank you, Cory.
All right. Yeah.
Everyone have a happy Mother's Day. Take care of your mama.
That's right.
Yep.
That's
and
right.
Your wife, if
I'll be in Alexandria with mine Mother's Day. So
good deal, man. Good. All right, guys. Take care.
See y'all.
See you later.